welcome to another Books and Things with Tom. It's been a great week, and we've had some wonderful weather. Thank God that hot day last week, a couple days ago, was gone. Then we're down to getting September weather. Today I have Meredith Mason Brown, who is an attorney graduate from Harvard College, and he had magna cum laude from Harvard Law School, and he's written a few books on while he was an attorney, and then he's been writing history books. And now he has a book called Touching America's History. And welcome.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Come down here.
Nice to be here.
It's an interesting book because it's not written about history for 300 years. It's just artifacts that you've managed to pick up.
Well, it misleads people because it says touching America's history from the Pequot War, which is way back in 637 or something, through World War II, which is 1945. So it's more than 300 years. So people think, my God, do I have to read an 800-page? No, you don't. It's a 200-page book, and it's not really about all of American history. It's about things that have captivated me on American history because of some tangible thing, some relic that I've touched that makes me think of it. And there's some that are right on the cover of this book. And the first set of relics were things that were Pequot work. There are these pieces of stone. There's an adze head for hollowing out a tree trunk. And then there's a smaller one, but it's almost as heavy because it's very dense.
And it's got to weigh about, what, 2 pounds?
It weighs about 2 pounds. It's got a place to be tied on, and that makes you think, that's interesting. And it's also got some chips off of it, so it's seen work. And you wonder who was killing whom, and that got me back into the Pequot War. And from that, you begin thinking about the interaction of the settlers and the Indians, and that Pequot War, which left 500 people dead after the first hour, was the kind of opening of what it was like and the way the whites did proceed between then and the 1891, the end of the major Indian Wars, using this same technology. So, yes, there are tangible things. I'm not doing the book because of the tangible things. I'm doing it because of the way the tangible things make me understand a major movement in American history. That's the exciting part.
This is the nice part, because you take a look at this thing, and it's heavy, and you think, well, gee, this is probably some kind of tool, and not knowing anything about it, you would never guess what it's used for, but you've been able to captivate that in the book.
Yeah, and then if we were to go down just a couple of there are probably 20 in the book, but which we don't have time for, but here's another one. If you look at page 22 and can hold that up, there's a Kentucky rifle. It's a gorgeous Kentucky rifle that was carried by an ancestor or a relative of mine named John Floyd. This would have been...
there it is.
There you got it. And it's a handsome thing. He was a good close friend of Daniel Boone, who, by the way, an ancestor of mine, was the lawyer for Daniel Boone.
Oh, no kidding.
And Boone had his house that his operation that he had built, and some Cherokee and some Shawnee took his 13-year-old daughter and 2 other teenagers and was going to carry these girls off up north into Ohio. And Boone and Floyd, who was only 23 years old at the time, followed Boone, who was more like 43, but in great shape. And they got early in the morning where the Indians were having a little bread before they went over into the Ohio side, and each of them picked their target. Each of them fired at the same time. Each of them killed the Indian they were pointing at.
Wow.
And rescued the girls. And so that's the kind of thing that makes you kind of gripped about what's going on. That's an example. Another example, which I don't know whether it'll show very well, but it relates to somebody who sounds like a relative of mine. My father was a lecturer. He was lecturing in Charlestown, Virginia. A woman came up and said, your name is John Brown, are you related to John Brown, the abolitionist? And Dad said, I don't have that distinction. And she said, I don't care. I want you to have this, and this you'll, with luck, eventually find, are the scaffold, are the shavings from the scaffold.
Oh, that's right. We didn't mark that one.
Yeah. Well, if you were to look at page 81, you'd see it. The shavings from the scaffold on which John Brown, the abolitionist, was hanged. It just looks like shavings, and it was shavings, and it was shavings done by this woman's ancestor, who was a carpenter, who took the shavings from the place where the hanging of John Brown was actually arranged. Yeah. And if you look at the back of that chapter, you'll see something where there are 1,500 people from Virginia guarding to make sure that John Brown isn't rescued. This is in December of 1859, which is when John Brown gets hanged. There's a picture, you won't be able to see that there, but in the distance, swinging from the scaffold is John Brown. So there it is. It's just shavings from the scaffold, but it gives you the context of the Civil War in the works. It's 1859. It isn't there yet. There's an abolitionist. There are 1,500 people who are dead set against that guy doing anything other than dying, and he does die.
Now, I had read a book on John Wilkes Booth, and he was among the crew that was going to try to rescue John Brown.
Yes.
Obviously did not do it.
Right. Although he does his cry at the end about so perish all who enemies of Virginia. That speech he gives, a relative of mine gives I regret to say, very comparable speech in that picture of the 1,500
really?
Men.
I should also point out that you're not related to John Mason either.
Not related to John Mason at all, although he certainly was a productive fellow, not necessarily for the good of his friends.
He was popular then. Not too popular today.
Yes, no. You remember all the discussions about the bronze statue of the drawing.
I drive by that every day.
Yes, right. So that's a couple of them, and you also see some amazing things later on in the 1940s, in the middle of World War II. My father gave me a thing which I couldn't really figure out what did he give me that for. There's a picture of a cowboy riding a horse like crazy. Do you have that one in your? You might be able to find that.
Got it.
Yeah. Well, what that was about was towards the end of World War II, after D-Day, or actually just before D-Day, the weather got so bad that although there were the 11,000 airplanes waiting and the 6,000 ships waiting to cross over, they thought it's just too risky. The boats will be sunk and the Germans will come over and it'd be hopeless. So Eisenhower calls the shot and says, we're postponing for a day, which takes balls of steel, because does that mean that the Germans who thought the attack was going to be in Calais will realize that it's going to be in Normandy and send all their defense over there. That would have been a horrible thing to do.
Yeah.
During that one day of rain, Eisenhower did what he often did when he had time to kill, which is he would dig out a Western book. There are 30 books by this gentleman, Mr. James Hendricks. They started in 1930. And that rainy day, he read this book. When he was through, he gave it to his aide, Harry Butcher, who was a friend of my father, who was an aide to an admiral in D-Day. So Dad gets the book. Dad gives me the book. I give the book to the Eisenhower Institute, which is where it's sitting today. But again, a funny little book by itself isn't American history. But when you realize the scene in which this occurs, it's one of the biggest things in World War II. I can't imagine a bigger one.
Yeah. So a book by itself means nothing, but who had it and what they did with it is the whole story.
Right. And then the pictures tell a story. Of course, Hitler says we're going to make Germany impregnable because we've got great strength in the south. And Eisenhower thinks that's not likely to happen, but damned if he's going to take a gamble on that. So he sends several flights of Allied raids over Hitler's house down in the south. And do we have a picture of what house looks like? It doesn't look very well after it's been bombed 2 times on April 25th of 1945. It's really a mess. And that's April 25th.
Yeah, I don't know if we can make it out or not, but...
Yeah. That doesn't look like a house. That looks like something got run over by...
by some tanks.
Some large tanks. And that's true. That's in Berchtesgaden in southern Germany, April 25. 5 days later, Hitler shoots himself and kills himself because he's in Berlin, and here come the Russians. And there's one other thing that we might have time for, which is the next picture over that one. Yeah. Can you show that picture?
This, I think, is fascinating.
That picture was picked up by my godfather, who had no children, so he was always giving me things. And he, right after the end of Hitler's life and the end of the war, he went down to Hitler's house to see if he could pick up some kind of trophy. That's what everybody was doing. I got a piece of Hitler's this or that. And the GIs were given orders to guard against that and don't let anyone take any of the trophies. And Uncle Donnie gave me a piece of Hitler's toilet bowl and said, "This, Meredith, this is a piece of Hitler's toilet bowl." It looked like a piece of Hitler's toilet bowl. It was a piece of Hitler's toilet bowl. And I said, "Well, Uncle Donnie, how could you give that to me? How do you get it if all of the soldiers were guarding against the trophies?" He said, "Well, I just, it's got a beautiful valley, and I just pointed down the valley and said, 'Gee, will you look at that incredibly beautiful valley?' And when the officer turned to look, I picked up the piece, and here's the piece that I wanted you to have."
That's probably the only piece in the world that's left.
That's right. My son did say, I said to my son, "Do you think you could get any, create life out of the flakes of things that are left in there?" And he said, not a piece of Hitler, I don't think, but maybe what he had for lunch. So,
That'd be different.
What I'm trying to create is the image that you look at the relics, you put them together, the tangible things, and you realize that they give shape to the growth of America, all of America, because you see America grow west to the Pacific. You see the land taken from the Indians. You see the land taken from the Mexicans, and you see California becoming part of America. You see the bitterest part of slavery resolved, but by bloodshed. And all of these changes create the America we grew up in and live in. So
now, it must take us tremendous research to get all this information together.
it did, but that's also part of the pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's also a pleasure to keep bumping into people and forebears that you didn't even know existed. You begin liking them, most of them. I have a great uncle who died when I was 7. He at that time was a major general. When he was a young lieutenant in the Philippine War, a Filipino captive broke and ran for the wild, and Uncle Preston drew a 45 and with one shot killed this man in the back of the head, and was court-martialed and acquitted by Theodore Roosevelt. Why was that? It turns out that Theodore Roosevelt and that man's father were good buddies, and Theodore Roosevelt wrote a tremendously successful book on American history with the help for the Kentucky chapter of my ancestor. So it is a small world.
I did read that part of there, and I was I was in Puerto Rico, right?
No, he did fight in Cuba.
Oh, Cuba, okay.
As a young guy, and then he fought in the Philippine War for
Philippines.
a while.
Yeah, Philippines, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of research. That's very interesting. The whole book is fascinating. You do cover some tremendous things in here.
See if you can get page 167, which is in the Philippine War. William Howard Taft becomes the American Commissioner of the Philippines. And see if you get a picture of him on page 167.
Put these glasses on. 167. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that poor thing.
Poor thing. This is a picture of. It looks like a small creature. The small creature is a water buffalo that looks tiny.
Yeah.
Because sitting on it is William Howard Taft. William Howard Taft at that time weighed about 330 pounds.
Oh my God.
Wow. He was a brilliant guy and a wise guy, and he helped save my great uncle from trouble because they were buddies from way back.
It does look like such a tiny water buffalo.
So that's the world. It's a changeable world. You've got a new nation born. You have the strongest nation in the world at that time, created out of next to nothing back in the days of the Pequots.
Yeah. Wow. Now you cover from the Pequots to Germany, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Excellent book. It's got a lot of pictures in here. I'll just pass one here. So it's not dull reading. It's very exciting. Here's who is this?
I'm glad you found that. I was looking for that.
Oh.
That's Osceola. Osceola is everybody's view of the greatest of the Indians.
Oh, really?
And he fought in the war down in Florida. In that particular picture, which is done by George Catlin, the strongest of the American painters of Indians. That Indian has about 2 months to live.
Oh, really?
He's sick at the time. He's fought boldly. He's been very badly treated by the Americans, and there he is, just being pictured, but for what he is and what he was.
Wow. It's it's really a tremendous book. As I was trying to peruse through it, it's you got so many great pictures and the descriptions are just so elaborate. I don't know how you manage to do it all. It's just, but that's part of writing the book is the research, trying to get everything properly done and learning all about these things.
Right. If you want to go back another round, the book that preceded that is a book called Frontiersman, which is the life of Daniel Boone that I wrote. And that was great.
That'd be an
Great
interesting
fun,
one
too.
to
And I
read.
kept bumping into dead Browns. It's fun to meet my antecedents that I hardly knew about, but interesting.
Huh. That is amazing. I think, of course, being a writer myself, I do the research and research is just, and try to get the research and then try to get it down in words so that you can understand it and tell people about it. And you have published books. Well, I gotta find my place here. As a lawyer, Strategic Guide to Mergers and Acquisitions. That must be interesting. About takeovers.
Yeah, I headed up our takeovers group at that law firm, and it's interesting to see people try different ways to get deals, get out of deals, make money, whatever.
That's the name of the game. Buy it up cheap and sell it for a lot of money.
You hope.
Yeah. Now, wait, you can buy your books at Amazon,
Yes.
Barnes & Noble, and
The Indiana University Press or the Louisiana University Press in the case of the Frontiersman book.
oh, okay. What, you don't have them downtown Mystic?
They moved quite well. I haven't seen them sell much lately. When the Boone book came out, it did 6,000 copies in the first couple weeks.
Wow. That's great.
Well, everybody loves Daniel Boone, and they
Yeah,
should.
yeah.
He's an extraordinary man.
Huh. That's neat. I don't think I've sold 6,000 books yet. I did Mystic in the 1950s, and all about growing up in the town, and that was interesting. Mostly, it's all memory, but I had to research on some of the things I wasn't too sure of, and
That's good stuff to write about. Glenn Gordonier did something of that sort, I think.
yeah, I think did he do Westerly? No, he did Thanksgiving, wasn't he? Thanksgiving.
All I remember is Mystic.
Yeah, I remember. I know he did a book. I can't remember what it was either. But this is when I grew up, and it's just things that I could remember. And then, because sometimes your memory is not quite what it should be, so you have to research some of this.
It doesn't get stronger.
You noticed that too. I thought it was me. And sometimes it's not longer either. It gets a lot shorter. And so what's your next project?
Well, I'm groping around for that. I'd like to do something I haven't done before. I've done now quite a lot of nonfiction. It's been years since I attempted any fiction. If I can come off a project that kind of straddles both, that is based on nonfiction, but has to have people to communicate. Who knows whether that will get anywhere? When you get your books done, do you have the 30 times experience? You present it to 30 different people, and then you said the hell with it, and at about that time, finally somebody buys your book. But
Yeah.
maybe.
I don't remember how many I have, because I got 2 books, and one that's been out since 2004. And I'm still doing presentations on it. And the other one, Mystic Book, is I'm going to be on at R.J. Julia on the 17th
that's a
of
nice
September.
place.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about my book there. And mine was, I was going to name it Growing Up in a Small Town Like Mystic. And everybody said, growing up doesn't sell. Mystic does. So, Mystic in the 1950s. And the title does have
good
something
advice.
to say, yeah.
Yep.
But it's just, well, I look forward to seeing another book from you. I'd like to do fiction, but my mind doesn't work that way. I can't think of how to do it. I got enough problems trying to get it when it's truth. Linda from the Rite Aid loaned me your book so I could take a read through it, and it's a great book. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm grateful to her. I'm grateful to you.
Yeah, so we're kind of running down. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think I've probably taken up more time than I should have, but that's from enthusiasm.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We'd like to get everybody on to let people know that these books are out there. And I have a decent following, I hope, out there. And don't forget to write to me if you can't find the book. SantosTom at Comcast.net. Or you can email Meredith. And his email, again, is mmbrown. Maybe you just had it up there. At
Debavoice.com.
Debavoice.com. And or else you can contact me. There it is up there now. But we try to keep people buying locally. Local authors
Here.
are not as famous as James Patterson, but we'd like to be at least around town. We're winding down. About 2 minutes left. Again, if you take time, say a prayer for Senator Maynard. I understand he's progressing. I just hope it's progressing a lot quicker than usual. And we all liked him. All right. I mentioned last week my page on Facebook, which is Loved Ones Lost. I hope some of you have checked that out. It's a wonderful page to be able to talk about your lost loved one, whether it be a parent, a child, a good friend, or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Just drop a line on there, and we like to help people out, help you through depression or whatever it is. Saturday night at the Legend Fair, Frankie Justin Lamprey is going to be opening for the Steve Daggett Band. And if you go up there and see them, tell them that you saw them on my show. We had Frankie on here twice, and we had Steve on 1 week. Both excellent guitarists and singers. Country bands. Everybody likes country. You can email me again at SantosTom at Comcast.net. Check out my website at TomSantos.net, and we have some information on there. And I think you should, I think we're out of time, but I think I've lost him.
I think we're through.
You should be reading, cuddle up with a good book, and I'll see you next week. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir.